Thank you, councillors, staff, and fellow citizens. My name is Rob Shirkey. I'm a resident of Toronto and a lawyer and founder of the environmental nonprofit called Our Horizon, an organization that's asking governments to legislate climate change and air pollution disclosure labels, or warning labels, for gas pump nozzles. Yay, hooray! Yay, stickers! Right? Stickers. I'd like to take a moment first to thank the City of Toronto for hosting the Transform TO public consultations. It was during these consultations that several residents actually shared our concept and asked for the city to pursue it. First, I'd like to begin with some context. Our neighbours to the south just elected a president who thinks climate change is a hoax, and he's already working to undo much of the progress made by his predecessor. In Canada, a recent survey commissioned by the Ontario Science Centre found that 40% of Canadians believe, quote, the science behind climate change is still unclear or unsettled. James Hansen, one of the most prominent climate scientists in the world, decries the, quote, huge gap between the public's understanding of the situation and the scientific understanding. He argues that helping the public to connect the dots is critical, and this is where our work can come in. The disclosure labels help to close the experiential gap between our use of fossil fuels and their impacts to create greater social impetus to address climate change. There is a tremendous inertia to the incumbent energy system. A fossil fuel economy is all we've ever known, and the simple act of gassing up has been normalized for several generations. These labels take a habitual automatic behavior and denormalize it. Loosening the grip of the status quo will stimulate broader demand for reform and accelerate our transition off fossil fuels. But there's a lot more to the concept than that, and I encourage you to read a briefing note that I've printed out as a backgrounder. I'll leave it with the clerk, but I'll also email you a PDF. The idea has been endorsed by NGOs like the Toronto Environmental Alliance, the David Suzuki Foundation, the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, Clean Air Partnership, and many more, including Green 13 in Councillor Doucette's ward. I'll tell her later.
I'll pass it along.
Please do, thank you. It has also received endorsements from municipal governments across the country, where several are even in the process of implementing it. In Ontario, councils in Oakville, Waterloo, Kitchener, Guelph, and Pickering have all passed resolutions calling on the provincial or federal government to implement it. Lidstone & Company, a local government firm in Vancouver, reviewed our research for British Columbia municipalities and concluded, quote, in our opinion, a requirement to place labels on gas nozzles could be validly imposed pursuant to a municipality's power to regulate business. Our legal research shows that a municipality in Ontario could similarly mandate these labels under the Municipal Act. American author and activist James Baldwin once wrote, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And that is exactly what our labels make us do. Let us have the courage, as the previous speaker pointed out, to face what many have called the greatest challenge of our time. I would ask committee members to consider putting forward a motion during the upcoming Parks and Environment Committee meeting to, 1, ask staff to report back on the feasibility of implementing the idea in Toronto, and 2, endorse the concept like your colleagues have in other communities. And I prepped for a 3-minute speech, which I'm already way over, but given that I've got a minute and 6 seconds, just in closing, the idea here is not to get this done in Toronto only, in Ontario only. The idea is to create precedents for the world to follow. Much like it was actually Canada that we're the first jurisdiction in the world to require the visual warning labels on tobacco packages. That's an idea that went all over the world. Studies have shown they've had an impact, but more relevant to this, globally, people have been primed for this concept. People get it. If we can do this here, if we can do this in communities across Canada, I foresee it spreading all over the world. And imagine if this otherwise abstract, intangible, sometimes far away thing called climate change became a little more tangible, a little more real. These hidden costs become visible. They're actually that much more approximate. I think you're creating this ideal social environment for reform, and perhaps globally we'll begin to address the challenge in a meaningful way. Oh yeah, it's just a sticker too, right? So super low cost.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Cheers.